you look at the deal, and it looks crooked.
There are a lot of investigations going on into Hunter Biden, into Joe Biden, these whistleblowers coming out.
Guess what, guys? Joe Biden was in the room. Joe Biden was a part of this. There was influence peddling going on.
A shocking court hearing that was bad news for Hunter Biden. A Delaware judge refused to approve a controversial deal in which Mr. Biden would have pled guilty to tax evasion and avoid prison time. The agreement broke down over the question of whether he would be immune from future prosecutions. This comes just after House Speaker Kevin McCarthy floated the possibility of an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden based on allegations of corruption in the Biden family. Joining us now to discuss all this is Representative Cammack, Republican of Florida. Congresswoman, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you this evening.
Hey, good to see you, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so it was just yesterday, as I mentioned, that Kevin McCarthy floated this idea of an impeachment inquiry. So how does the news today change things?
Well, it's interesting because, of course, as we know, Speaker McCarthy announced that there was definitely a path forward on an impeachment inquiry. And then last night, I happened to be at a dinner with the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, who is in charge of these IRS investigations into Hunter Biden's dealings, and filed an amicus brief to give the judge additional context that had been omitted from the case. And he told us at the dinner table last night what had happened, where Hunter Biden's lawyers had called the court and asked to have the case withdrawn, pretending to be a member of the chairman's team. So when it was found out that this had happened, not only was the chairman furious, but the judge was as well. So you compound the funny business and the attempts to actually get the evidence in front of the judge with now the judge's actions today. Things aren't looking so great for Hunter Biden. But as we all know, the truth eventually catches up with you. And I think there's way more here that the judge needs to consider as we consider the fact that this man, Hunter Biden, has a criminal record, a rap sheet that goes back to the year that I was born, 1988, when he got his very first drug charge, and has received what looks to be a slap on the wrist for not only lying on a background check about a firearm purchase, but then getting a sweetheart deal of pleading guilty to 2 years rather than the full 6, where he avoided paying his taxes. So I think there's way more to come, and it will be interesting to see how this develops.
Okay, so something else that we learned today in the courtroom from federal prosecutors is that an investigation indeed is still going on into Hunter Biden. We don't really know what that all entails, but there are 3 active investigations within the House on the Biden family. So how much harder does that make it for you all to gain access and information that is pertinent to your investigations, because there is an active investigation into Hunter Biden from the DOJ?
Well, what we've seen repeatedly is DOJ and FBI continue, and the IRS, saying there's an active investigation going on. And so they can't divulge any sources. They can't divulge any information. And of course, it certainly makes our work much more difficult. But what we know to be true is that there is absolutely a 2-tier justice system playing out in front of us. None of us with a rap sheet like Hunter Biden would have been given the deal that he was given on the 2 charges that he is supposedly to be facing. Now, I think that those charges will be looked at again. I think this is going to actually amp up in intensity, because people are starting to understand that through the whistleblowers that have come forward, through all of the documents, the 20 shell companies, the payments, the screenshots, the former business associates that have come forward and said, guess what, guys? Joe Biden was in the room. Joe Biden was a part of this. There was influence peddling going on. There has been foreign interference. This is going to start to really ramp up and snowball. So it's important that we get all of the facts, all of the evidence, because as we saw with the sham impeachments of President Trump, we want to get this right. We want to make sure that there is all of the evidence on the table for the American people to see. We can't do this half-baked. That's why this is so important that we get it right and we get all the information.
Only have 30 seconds left for you, but there are some Republicans who are already saying, based off today's hearing, that they are ready to open an impeachment inquiry. Would you support that?
Absolutely. I have seen so much evidence through the weaponization of government work that we are doing to really implicate the fact that we have spent $113 billion of taxpayer money in Ukraine. And now we are understanding that there has been kickbacks and obstruction from Biden himself and his family members as a result of the Burisma deal, not to mention that he is completely compromised when it comes to our biggest adversary, China. we absolutely need to get to the bottom of this. I think the impeachment query is the only way to go moving forward.
Joining us now is former U.S. Attorney Guy Lewis. Guy, good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good to be here.
Okay, so I think Hunter Biden thought he was going to walk into this court hearing today and it was going to be just a simple hearing, but that's not what happened. We saw this judge reject the plea deal, but it seemed like she was trying to help Hunter because it seemed like he didn't understand, his lawyers didn't, that there's still an investigation going on into him. We're not quite clear what that is. So he rejected this plea deal, and now federal prosecutors and his lawyers will get together as this is on hold and try to figure it all out. But based on what you saw today, what does this mean for Hunter moving forward?
Boy, in short, Lindsay, bad news. You almost never see this in federal court. I've done it many, many times. I've overseen it. I've approved these kind of, not this kind of deal, which is why we are at the point we're at, because this is an extraordinary deal. And I think that's why the judge looked at it and said, wait a second, guys, let's go through this thing. Let's look at this thing. And Lindsay, I don't necessarily blame Hunter Biden and his lawyers. Look, their job is to get the best deal possible for their client. That's their job. That's what they do as defense lawyers. The person that I'm holding responsible is the prosecutor, Weiss. He just, I don't get it. It makes no sense. I was on your show a few weeks ago, and you and I discussed the very fact that the judge may look at this deal, which is a sweetheart deal, almost too good to be true deal, may look at it, and she may look at it and say, wait, I don't like this. Something doesn't smell right about this, and that's what happened today in federal court.
Yeah, and she said that these gun charges were unusual, was her quote. You know, as you mentioned before when you came on, she has the sole authority here. So what is the likelihood that we may see him in a trial in the future or potentially even serving prison time?
Great question. So I think they're going to go back to the drawing board, and I think they're going to have to redo this deal in large measure. Frankly, you look at the deal, and it looks crooked. I mean, look, I'm not saying that it is, but you just look at it, it's not right. It never happens like this. I myself did what's called the guideline calculation, and I looked at it as I would as a prosecutor and putting on my old hat, and I'm telling you, if it was you, Lindsay, if it was me or anybody else, I think, Hunter Biden would be facing 5, 6, 7 years in jail. And the prosecutor walked in there. They've got this sweetheart deal. He's got no jail time. They're recommending probation. And frankly, the whole thing with the guns is this what's called a pretrial diversion agreement. You sign on the dotted line, the charges go away, and that's it. No fuss, no muss. And it's wrong based on the circumstances that we know to be true. The deal's no good.
Okay, so there's a lot going on right now. If you look at what's happening in the House, we just talked to Cammack, representative of Florida. There are a lot of investigations going on into Hunter Biden, into Joe Biden, these whistleblowers coming out, even alleging that this U.S. District Attorney David Weiss was corrupted in some way. Is that something that the judge here, Narika, is that something that she should consider and kind of push this can down the road till some of that has calmed down a little bit, or should she act like that's not even taking place?
She definitely, that's definitely on her mind, Lindsay. So she asked the question, are there any other investigations that are ongoing? And that's what that question was directed at. She's seen it. She's watched the news. She's seen that that Hunter Biden, these phone calls, the Burisma, the whole 9 yards, that the Congress is on this like crazy. And Weiss claims what? The investigation is still ongoing. The two are incompatible. You can't go in there and say, Judge, I want to wrap this whole thing up, and I'm going to give this guy the deal of the century, walk him right out of the courtroom, and, by the way, the investigation is still ongoing. Well, those two positions, and the judge pointed it out, she's clearly on top of this, those two positions are clearly inconsistent. And that's why I think she told them, look, not today, not on my watch. Let's go back, do some more work, and I'll talk to you more later when you guys have your act together.
All right, well, we'll have to have you back when they do have their act together and help us kind of figure out what all is going on. Guy Lewis, it's good to see you this evening.